Good to go? Good. Well, hi everyone, good morning. Thanks for coming. It's great to be here with the Minister of Agriculture and Forestry, Todd McClay, and Minister of Energy, Honourable Simon Watts, to talk to you about the National League Government's ambitious work to cut red tape in our planning system. You've heard us say many times from the Prime Minister down that our planning system is broken. It's a handbrake on the economic growth that we need and the cause of many of our challenges across the economy. The reality is the RMA embeds a culture of no, and as a country we have to start saying yes a lot more, and reforming the RMA is a key part of this puzzle. We have been focused on delivering radical reforms to our planning system. Phase 1 of our plan began immediately after coming into office, repealing the Labor government's reforms. They would have made things worse, not better. Phase 2 involves a range of changes to the existing RMA in the interim, before we get into Phase 3, which is full replacement of the RMA with a more enabling system based on property rights. Today we're here to talk about Phase 2. During Phase 2 we've already passed a bill last year, and particularly in relation to the primary sector. Another one is about to come back from Select Committee, and we passed the Fast Track Approvals Act last year to get nationally and regionally significant infrastructure built faster. The final piece of the puzzle is national direction. And today we are announcing consultation will begin today on the biggest change to national direction since the RMA came into force in 1991. This planning system will fundamentally change the way our economy operates for the better. It will be cheaper, faster and more efficient. Kiwis are not willing to wait for full replacement of the RMA, which will be in law by the end of next year and take effect in 2027. Our country is desperate for growth right now. And that's what today's national direction changes are all about. National direction, I want to be really clear, is the meat on the bones of the RMA. It sits beneath the statute, and decision makers under the RMA have to comply with national direction. It provides the details to decision makers in the planning system. So when councils are issuing consents or making their plans, they look to national direction to guide them. There's two types. There's national policy statements and national environmental standards. These instruments are powerful. They can permit certain activities, provide policy guidance for resource consent decisions, as well as introduce nationally consistent rules and standards. When we were designing this package, we had three goals in mind. First, they had to have immediate and meaningful effect on the ground right now. They had to focus on delivering our key priorities to supercharge economic growth, and they had to not require millions and millions of dollars of implementation fees from councils. You've got to remember, once we change the RMA, there will be an entirely new system in place from 2027, and so we don't want to have councils spending millions of dollars and spending endless hours going through plan changes right now, only to have to redo them all again. And I'm really confident that the package we've come up with delivers on these goals. So today we're announcing consultation on three packages of national direction. The consultation opens today and will last until the 27th of July this year. The fourth package around housing will be released in the next week or so. It's broader than what we're consulting on today, and we'll ask New Zealanders how they see housing operating in the new RMA framework that we've already outlined, and I'll have more to say about that in the coming weeks. The changes I want to stress are highly technical. That is the nature of the RMA. And so the documents are technical and they are complicated, but they are extremely important. And I want to acknowledge Alan McDonald from the EMA who's here, who's played a role over many years actually in the detail of the RMA. We're going to run through some highlights between the three of us, and then we'll have to take questions. Package 1 is about infrastructure and development. In the RMA right now, there is no instrument that clearly states that infrastructure development is a good thing. That makes it harder for decision makers to properly take into account the clear and undeniable benefits of infrastructure development in our towns and cities. So the national direction changes we're announcing will include a new piece of national direction, a national policy statement on infrastructure. This is something that the sector has asked for a long time. We are delivering on it. We're also proposing action to help tackle our housing crisis. There'll be new national direction on granny flats, which we've already announced, and the detail is here today, but also papakāinga housing. So there are inconsistent rules for papakāinga housing in district plans around the country. They prevent Maori landowners from using their own whenua in many cases. We're proposing a set of national standards to reduce these barriers for housing. The Granny Flat changes and the Papakainga changes sit alongside the changes that Chris Penk is making to the building and construction sector to remove the requirements for a building consent. There will also be a new national policy statement on natural hazards to provide clarity to councils in the way in which they manage things like flood zones to keep homes and communities safe. Minister Watts is now going to take you through the energy changes.
Well, thank you very much, Minister Bishop. So also in Package 1 are a range of changes to existing instruments to help support this government's agenda to supercharge renewable energy in New Zealand. We need billions of dollars of investment in the coming years in renewable energy supply. But currently it is far too hard to consent renewable energy projects. We're proposing a strengthened national policy statement for renewable electricity generation. The current NPS was drafted in 2011. It is far too vague and too woolly. Decision makers need clear guidance that renewable energy is vital for our prosperity. Right now, New Zealand's energy infrastructure is vulnerable to severe weather events and seasonal shortages. By also changing the electricity generation and transmission national direction, we can improve both energy security and affordability, while helping us to achieve our goals of doubling renewable energy by 2050. The changes will also support the country's existing renewable energy assets, including lines networks. We're also changing the national direction on electricity transmission to simplify consenting and reduce costs, as well as proposing changes to help deliver more public EV chargers. A range of new permitted activity rules will make it easier to build EV chargers across the country. I'll now hand over to Minister Macleay.
One other thing is we are modernising the standards around the delivery of telecommunication poles. The standards around building cell phone towers have not been updated since 2016. They are now widely out of date, and so we're updating those. On to Package 2, the primary sector, which Minister Macleay will talk to. We're amending a range of existing instruments to streamline and remove many of the burdensome regulations holding our primary sector back from growth. One other change that I think is really important before I hand over to Minister Macleay is quarrying and mining. It is a cold, hard fact that New Zealand needs more quarries. We make them far too hard to build, and once they are built, we make them far too hard to expand. We need quarries for roads and construction, and a major driver of the cost of building a new road is the fact that it is hard to get aggregate and fill and the material from quarries. We need more of them. So the rules we are proposing today streamline and simplify the rules around quarries and mining across multiple pieces of national direction, and it will make it easier to get a consent for a quarry and a mine, helping New Zealand deliver the infrastructure that we know that we need. Now over to Minister Macleay, and then we will take your questions.
Chris, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. The primary sector underpins New Zealand's economy and the standard of living. We can be very proud of our farmers and foresters who work hard every day to produce high quality, some of the highest quality, safest food and fibre anywhere in the world. They export, and it provides income for so many New Zealanders. But for far too long, government rules have held them back, that stop them innovating, and have added unreasonable and unnecessary cost to production, which in turn pushes up the cost of food. When farmers and foresters do well, our country does well. Frustratingly, New Zealand's primary producers have struggled against overly restrictive, confusing and duplicative regulations that have kept being piled on. Today we're proposing to cut these through a number of these, letting farmers get back to doing what they do best, which is to farm. National campaigned on removing LUC 3 land from the structures of the National Policy Statement on Highly Productive Land, and I'm pleased to confirm that proposal. And amendments will do exactly that. These changes will allow farmers to do more with their land. We're also consulting on creating special agricultural areas around key horticultural hubs like Pukekohe and Horowhenua to continue to protect prime growing lands in these areas. These changes will remove the restrictions on non-intensive grazing of beef cattle, deer and wetlands. The significant cost on farmers of fencing off cattle and deer from wetlands on low-intensity properties was way out of proportion to environmental risk and benefit. The other changes will streamline consent conditions for aquaculture sector, reduce inefficiencies for the forestry sector, and better enable priority activities in coastal areas. All of these changes will make it easier to invest on farm, lift productivity, and build long-term resilience in the face of weather and market challenges. It's about freeing farmers up to do what they do best, producing high-quality food and fibre for New Zealand and for the world without being buried in paperwork. Package 3, Freshwater, proposes to replace the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management 2020 and related regulations with a more practical, efficient, regionally adaptable system. This is a key step towards restoring balance in how freshwater is managed across the country and ensuring the interests of all water users, including farmers, growers and rural communities, are properly reflected. Our proposed changes would replace the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management 2020 and the National Environmental Standards for Freshwater. Give councils greater flexibility to balance environmental goals with economic impacts and allow longer timeframes to reach targets where needed. Remove unnecessary consents for practices like crop rotation or enable commercial domestic vegetable growing. Support long-term water security by enabling water storage, improve the protection of drinking water sources, and review and simplify data requirements under synthetic nitrogen fertiliser regulations. Changes would also simplify rules and restrictions in relation to wetlands and culverts regarding fish passage. The current system's Te Mana o Te Wai has caused frustration across rural New Zealand, with some councils applying it in a way that sidelines the very people working to improve water outcomes. We're proposing practical, farmer-focused reforms that will restore confidence and reduce red tape while still delivering environmental gains. We've heard from farmers across the country that nationally determined bottom lines are not always appropriate and can be unachievable, even in some catchments dominated by native bush. They also take away flexibility from local communities to achieve the environmental outcomes that they want. We're putting outcomes ahead of process and backing rural New Zealand to be a part of this solution. The move follows the government's decisive intervention in 2024 to stop the Otago Regional Council from pushing ahead with a freshwater plan that would impose unnecessary cost and uncertainty on all rural landowners. I'll now pass back to Chris.
Thank you, Todd. So as you can see, there's a substantive amount of detail to these packages. The changes are technical and complex, but they do have a big impact on the economy. So these are now open for consultation. The law requires us to consult on these changes, and we are looking forward to the feedback from users of the system, and then Cabinet will consider the revised proposals, if indeed they are revised, and we're hoping to do that in the final quarter of the year, once the feedback's received, and get these into law by the end of the year. With that, happy to take your questions.
Will these changes need legislation?
No, so they don't require legislation. The whole